can tell George I had surgery from Dr. Kozak as well. He took out my kidney back 5.5 years ago.
Oh, well, okay.
But about 4 years ago, I was given a diagnosis of stage 4 terminal renal cell carcinoma, and I was told I had a year to live, maybe 2. And so when you get that, it's a bit of a shock. It's a shock to Tracy and I, and I think at that point you have to make a decision. You have to decide how you think you might want to handle it. I've seen many people do the opposite of me, where they allow the cancer to be them. They become their cancer. They see the negative in most things. Everything is against them, and life is really tough because they take that approach. Whereas if you have a positive approach, it's quite powerful, and you can see a wall, and you quickly look at that wall and go, all right, how do I get over it or through it or around it to get to the other side? And I think if you keep that positive attitude going, it solves so much. And I'll guarantee you, without a doubt, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have a positive attitude.
No kidding. Wow. And of course, with Tracy and your family's support, and you have an amazing social network, and lots of people who love you and are very, very fond of you. And I'm sure that it doesn't go unnoticed. I'm sure that's
Bill. We're all this is a shared experience. If there's 3 things I could say for somebody going through this, one would be as positive as you can. Number 2, this is a shared experience. We're all in this together. And when you start, as many of the people have spoken already, when you speak about it and you share your vulnerability, what Kelly Rudy was saying was gorgeous. When you start sharing, it becomes so much easier. And because you're not doing it alone, you're not facing this very challenging, trying time mentally and physically alone. And if you don't mind, I'll share a little experience as to why I became so positive and why I realized it's a shared experience. It's a pretty crazy story. You've heard me tell it once when I told it at the Magnificent Men, but it bears repeating. The day that I found out that I had 15 lesions on my lungs, that the cancer had come back and I had tumors in my lungs, I also got a text from my friend Avnish, and he said, "Jim, I hope you don't mind. I took you into a healing session." And remember, this is just a text, and nobody knew I was going to see the oncologist or that I'd had a scan. And he says, I took you into a healing session, and I wanted to let you know that and I hope you don't mind, but I want to let you know that I see dark clouds over your lungs, and it looks quite serious. You may want to get it checked. Now, when you get something like that, it is so mind-expanding and blowing that it's hard to understand. So I talked to Avnish, and I've talked to him quite a bit. But what it taught me in that exact moment, that very first day that I was diagnosed, that we are all connected and that we all share an energy and we are all can participate in each other's good times and bad times to get through things. And I've done so much in this community and loved doing it. And you can only imagine the energy that comes back, and it's beyond powerful. It's tenfold what you give out. So that would be the third thing is be purposeful. So those 3 things, Bill, get you through anything.
Wow. Well, that is just amazing that Avnish would send you that, and he had no idea. So he sends you the text that I see dark clouds over your lungs. Just
imagine how hard that would be even to send it. Like somebody could think, if I received it and I wasn't open to that type of thing, you're a nut job. It's a pretty far-fetched statement to say out of the middle of nowhere. But I've subsequently sat down with them, and now I meditate. I took Qigong. I visualize. I can see. I go in and look at my body. I look at the tumor. I had a really weird experience once where the tumor was up like a mushroom, and I was doing bad things to it, like lightsabers and things. It was really bizarre. So I talked to Avnish, and I said, "This is weird that for a guy that says I don't want to fight, I'm not in a fight, I'm not in a battle. I'm trying to be living with cancer, not dying from cancer." And I said, it feels weird to be doing visualization and tearing apart a tumor with lightsabers, and he said, well, what if you, because his spirit animal is a buffalo, and he knew mine was a was a unicorn, and
Cool.
he said, why don't you have some baby buffaloes tread along the tumor? So I'm visualizing, I'm getting in there, and I see my tumor. My tumor is up like this big mushroom now. And again, I get all sorts of people are gonna be all freaked out by this story, but it's the truth. And so I didn't have any way to get the buffalo up to the top of the tumor, and all of a sudden these I crack myself up every time I tell this story. These unicorns come pick up my buffaloes, and they go up and they tread on the tumor. But that visualization, taking that time to understand your body and work with it in a positive manner, and trying to take care of yourself, is unparalleled.
Wow, that is so
and
cool.
Crazy.
No, it's not. Being aware of connectedness, that we really
Yep,
are all
we
connected.
are.
If you just open yourself up to it, and I think unfortunately so many people are not, and are closed to the possibility.
The saddest thing to watch, Bill, is to watch somebody go at something like this alone.
Oh, I can't imagine.
That
It
is
just
so
breaks my
sad.
heart.
Yeah.
You know what, my friend, you're what many would consider a great Calgarian. I think you're a phenomenal Calgarian. What do you think it is about Calgary that makes the city so good at coming together and overcoming adversity?
Gosh, I think, if you want to go right back to the genesis of this town, it's almost like that frontier attitude where you're out in the ranch lands trying to survive. And I had this great story once from Ed McNally, who's a mentor of mine, who was the founder of Big Rock. And I said, so Ed, why are we so involved in community? Tell me the impact. I got it, but I needed to hear from him. And he said that, imagine, Jim, if I'm on my ranch and I'm leaving my ranch and I see Farmer Bob's combine sitting in the field, and I go, that's odd. He's just sitting there. And I come back in the evening and he's still sitting there. Well, I'm going to go check that combine out. And if I see Bob trapped underneath his combine, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Obviously, I'm going to get him help, but then our neighbors, and we're going to come and combine his land before we combine our land, because that's just what you do when you are a community-based location. And I think that attitude has transferred to Calgary, where we're in it together. And we have a lot of people with a lot of political differences. And I think at the bottom of it, they still love this city. They know this city stands for so much, and that it's so great, and that it could be even greater, and it will continue to get greater. And all the people that are doing things to make it great are the essence of a society. And I'm super proud to be living in Calgary. I'm super proud to be forever trying to do things to make it a better place. But I think we got to get everybody doing it. The more, the merrier. We're all connected.
Absolutely, and we're all in it together. Is overused saying these days, but it's true. We're all in it together. So community.
And we're better together.
You bet we are.
I'm a better person because you're around, Bill.
Bless your soul. Well, back at you. So speaking of dear Ed McNally, rest his soul in heaven, because you were instrumental in way back when in your previous career,
right?
The Big Rock Eddies.
Oh,
was that
how fun were they?
Oh my
God!
Yeah. Here's what I really don't like about the world having gone so politically correct is you couldn't get away with it. We couldn't get away with that these days. No. They were really fun, right?
Oh, they were fun. Well, and people would get dressed. I often say it was a shame that Big Rock stopped doing it, because where else can you get 2,000 people to buy tickets in 5 minutes for $100 to go watch your beer commercials and sample your beer? It was a gold mine. It was beautiful. And give all the money that was raised to the Women's Emergency Shelter.
It was phenomenal. How many years did it run? Was it a dozen years or more? 50?
Yeah, it was about 11 or 12 years. Yeah, I think I was involved in it 8 or 9.
Yeah.
That and Calgary Cares were the two best events I've seen in this city in a long time.
In a long time, for sure. Calgary Cares. Now that was a fun one too. Do you remember when RuPaul was our?
Yes. Well, my favorite moment of that was watching a boy who was probably about 20 years old in a thong holding a beer, and a socialite whose husband I know is not necessarily that progressive. Having them talk for an hour, and I just watched and I went, that is so good. Those two people are learning about each other's worlds, and we're making a difference through that. Those are good. Those are risky times.
Oh, well, we pushed the envelope big time. Well,
Yeah.
my friend, we're out of time, so I just want to say thank you for all you've done and continue to do for the community. Continued good, good health. Continued. What I'm stumbling over this. You know what I mean,
Bill, I know exactly what you mean. Absolutely. I love you, and I am so proud of all the work you guys are doing. Thanks for continuing to do the work for prostate cancer, and it's so important. And it's so important because it's only funded by Calgarians. It doesn't have government funding. It's necessary. So bravo.
Well, thank you. You inspire me greatly, my friend. Please give me a love.
I'll keep making beers with Bull's balls for you.
Okay, will you? I'd like that a lot. I'd like that a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Over and out. Bye-bye. Over to you, Fuzzy.
Thanks, Bill. Our next guest, Alan Kaler, is one of Canada's most sought-after speakers when it comes to the topic of mental health and wellness. Having persevered through his own mental challenges, along with substance abuse, Alan has learned the valuable life lessons that led him on an incredible path. That his best-selling book, Mental Health: Time to Talk, examines the stigma around men's mental health. Welcome to joining us today. Alan, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Fuzzy. Honored to be here.
We know that there's still a stigma around mental health, especially for men. What do you think is the barrier for men not seeking the help that they need when they need it?
I had an opportunity, Fuzzy, to interview a lot of different men around that exact question. And it goes back to, I guess, some of those scripts that were taught, doesn't it, as a kid. And I found that so many of the men feared that if they reached out for help, or if they talked about some of their challenges, that they were going to be perceived as weak, that it would impact the way that they were perceived in their workplace, on and on and on. What I found fascinating, though, is that we are our greatest barriers. What all these men thought was going to happen never actually happened for the most part. In fact, it was the complete opposite, where they found that when they were able to finally reach out for help, they were actually met with compassion, love. Jim hit on it time and time again, this need and importance of support. And so I guess for me, there are still a lot of scripts and a lot of stigma remains, but man, Fuzzy, we are moving in the right way. And the biggest motivating factor for me is the kids, right? The teenagers, the next generation. They are training to be men. And we have got to, I think, model vulnerability, because if they can't see us be vulnerable as men or reach out for help, why would they?
That's exactly it, right? And things change so fast. I mean, you think back to 5 years ago, the conversations that we're having now about mental health openly and publicly, these conversations weren't happening 5 years ago. They weren't happening 3 years ago. I would say within the last 2 years, we've moved a long way with them, and it's through things like your book. Alan, could you share some tips for people who are going through a tough time and looking to enhance their mental wellness?
Fuzzy, I think one of the most important parts is we have to get out of our heads. I spent way too much time living in my head, and when I was struggling with mental illness, I didn't really know how to put a voice to my pain, so I stayed silent. And because I didn't talk about my pain, I obviously suffered more than anyone else, and I ended up withdrawing and isolating, which then made it more challenging. So I think the most important part is just put a voice to your pain. I get the fear and the vulnerability and how difficult it is to reach out for help, but I also understand the rewards. And just to touch on that as an example, I mean, I'm sure you've heard what took place in Medicine Hat, right, with the numerous men who've died by suicide in the last few months. And what's awesome to me is some men created the Inner Man Project, and they wanted to just create a platform where men could come and just reach out for support, share their story, and right away, within a few weeks, 1,300 followers. I mean, what is that? That speaks, Fuzzy, to exactly what you're saying. That men are ready. They want to talk about it. And the nice thing is, they were all met with love, Words like, you're my brother, you know, we get you. You cannot get to that place of being embraced and understood if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. So my point is, risk leads to reward, right? And I had to get myself into some really difficult situations. You know, like I got myself in the bipolar support group, Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, got in support groups for other men who've been sexually abused. Really difficult. But if you can be vulnerable and you start to hear your story in others, and you know, you're honest, and feeling leads to healing, right? If you're willing to look at some of this stuff, then I think we're moving the right way.
Yeah, it's the power of hearing somebody say, yeah, I can relate to that. Yes, I have those feelings too. Yes, I go through that. And that talks about how that team support, that support from friends and family. How do you suggest approaching someone in your circle, whether it's a friend, a family member, a coworker, who may be struggling and you want to support?
Yeah, great question. Fuzzy, I think we overthink this one. You know, elders always tell us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I guess to answer that question, I had to look at what I wanted. I never wanted to be fixed, right? I believe that we have 2 basic needs. And the first one is see me, and the second one is hear me. So if you can see that somebody is in any kind of emotional distress, if you just approach them and say something like, don't mean to pry, just want to let you know that I'm concerned, just want to let you know that I'd be more than happy to listen if you ever need to talk. Done. And why that's so powerful is because in that statement, you just said, I see you, and you've now given them an invitation to be heard. But whether or not they act on that invite, is that in your control or out of your control?
It's in their control now, so it's not in my control once I throw that out there.
Right? So there really is only so much that we can do. We can empower them to reach out for supports, but this is the hard part, because otherwise it's like this 3-legged race, right? Where we almost become enmeshed with them and we want to help them so bad, but then we become lost in their journeys. And if they fall, what happens to us?
We go down too, yeah.
Right? So this is tough. And I always just empower people to focus back on self. What can you control? Say and do everything in those moments so that you don't have to look back thinking, should have done more. Because silence, Fuzzy, as you know, I mean, that is not the answer, right? It's not. And I learned these lessons the hard way, you know, having to lose my best friend to suicide. Man, like you learn a lot when you go through that, right? And silence, definitely not the answer. Yeah,
I mean, the parallels between mental health and men's health, like physical health, like what we're dealing with at the Prostate Cancer Center here in Calgary. I mean, the parallels are unreal. You talk about men suffering in silence with their mental health, and you also hear about men not suffering in silence and not going and getting checked with regards to their prostate and their physical health. So it's so important to take care of both of those, and that's what we're hoping to do today with this event.
Yeah, love it. You said it perfectly. And I think one of the men I interviewed, Jay Blakely, he says that a lot of men are emotionally constipated, right? Because we don't always know how to feel.
We need a laxative. We need to let it all flow.
Yeah, give us some laxatives. But I think a question I often pose is, do you respond the same way to your physical pain as your emotional pain? Most people say no. Well, should you? Of course. And exactly like your point, if you don't deal with emotions, because emotions are energy, then it can manifest into things like prostate cancer or, you know, high blood pressure, on and on and on.
Alan, if you had one last piece of advice for everyone today, what would it be?
Man, you know, Jim really kept coming back to support. I think that we were not born to fight our battles alone. Michael Landsberg, he wrote the foreword to that book on men and mental health, and he says, you know, with mental illness, there's nothing contagious about it, but there is something contagious about sharing your story. And I have learned that there's nothing more powerful or sacred than one story. So I would empower people to share their story. I mean, exactly like what you're doing today, Fuzzy. You're giving people the opportunity to share, to come together and realize, okay, you know, I'm not alone in this, and you don't have to be alone.
Awesome. Alan, thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to learn more about your journey with mental health, you can be sure to check out your best-selling book. It's called Mental Health, Time to Talk. And you can also check that out via the website, alankaler.com. Thank you so much for your time today, friend.
Thanks, Fuzzy. Right back at you. Take care.
All right, bud. Bill, we're going to throw it back to you right now.
Thank you. Alan is certainly, he's wise beyond his years. What an amazing young man. Very cool. Before we're joined by our final guest, Nicole Gomez, we just want to remind you to please visit keepitincalgary.ca and make a donation. All funds raised go directly to the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center, and funds are used for treatment, research, and support for the individuals in our community affected by prostate cancer. And I would like to give a shout out to Phil and Harriet Libben for their generous donation of $2,500. Thank you very much. Fuzzy, over to you.
Nicole started up the highly successful, independently owned and operated Nicole Gourmet Catering. She then went on to open Cluck and Cleaver, and after competing on the third season of the Food Network's Top Chef Canada, Nicole returned for Top Chef Canada All-Stars Season 5 in 2016, and ta-da! She was crowned the top chef in all of Canada, becoming the first female winner ever, and from there she fought her way on to become the finalist in America's Iron Chef Gauntlet back in 2018. She's currently appearing as a competing judge on the Food Network Canada's Fire Masters. Please welcome Nicole Gomez to the Local Dive. Nicole, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about why you're here today and why you're so passionate about giving back to the community?
Well, I'll talk about Calgary's community to start with, and I've been part of that community for almost 18 years now. I'm originally from BC, and I have never been more welcomed in a community. Not only, I mean, the camaraderie between everyone and support is really genuine, and you know, when you go to other cities, you realize that it's like home. And you know, cancer is a very big and important subject for me, and important to me because I have a lot of family members currently battling cancer, and really close ones. I've lost a lot of friends to cancer, a lot of loved ones to cancer, and I think it's important to speak up about prostate cancer in particular.
Now, Nicole, can you share how you've overcome adversity in the past and how it's helped to motivate you? Because obviously you're a very successful chef. So what drove you to become that successful person?
Well, life isn't easy, is it? And I can say that's probably part of the strength that I have is overcoming a lot of adversity and trauma. I think overcoming it and realizing that, you know, it is life and it is a thing that happens, and how we deal with it is really interesting for everyone. It's a struggle. And I think, you know, self-awareness is a big one, and realizing that life isn't perfect. You have to overcome things. And I think that makes people stronger. And it's all about attitude. Well, not all about attitude, but a lot of it is about attitude and how we choose to react to it. So, you know, adversity can be dealt with in so many different ways. Everyone processes differently. But, you know, wellness and mindfulness and self-awareness is a really big one. And that's something I focused on the last 2 years. And I think it can bring a lot of a healthier lifestyle.
Would you say that was there ever a time in your career where you didn't see that clear-cut path where you're like, this isn't going to work out, whether it was from the catering, when you went to start up the catering company, and then when you decided to go on a national competition, or then opening a fast chicken restaurant? Was there anything that you looked at and you're just like, look, there's no clear-cut path, I just have to give up?
Oh my God. How many times should really be asked how many times I wanted to give up? You know, I think the adversity part of it, and not a lot of people know my past, but I've overcome a lot of trauma from childhood till now. And it took a lot of deep looking at yourself. And I think that, you know, I would probably question myself several times in my career why I was doing it. It has not been an easy path. It's a very challenging job. It's not about money. It can get you there, but you have to have that attitude to say, this is going to get me somewhere. I think the biggest thing for me that's helped me survive that is that I love what I do. And passion can take you really far. And I always say this to the team at both the companies, that if you're passionate about something, go after it. It doesn't have to be here. If you're passionate about being a basket weaver, then be a basket weaver, because you're going to do the best you can at it because you love it. And earlier Jim was talking about spirit, being spiritual with each other and that mindfulness. And I think that's really important, that we all are interconnected in some way. You meet certain people for a certain reason. I'm very spiritual, and everything happens for a reason.
I find it funny there that you use the term that passion. You need to find that passion, and that's something we talk with a few different people today about having that passion. You obviously have a passion that is food and cooking. What is your go-to meal to cook, and what is the power of making a great meal? Oh,
passion. Yeah, I'm passionate about cooking. I'm passionate about a lot of things, but I'm really passionate about eating.
me too.
So this is a really great question. My favorite meal on the planet is chicken and rice. So
okay.
Like any form of chicken and rice, but roast chicken is one of my favorite go-to meals. And I believe when you're passionate about something and you put that energy towards something, you'll do the best at it, and it'll show in the food. And so I always say that cooking is about putting love into the food. Everything's surrounded around being a chef and my career and having stressful situations. And people say that about being on TV and competing, like it must be so stressful. I'm like, yeah, you know what? It is, but I love it so much. I'm just going to trek on, and I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to move forward. And I think it's kind of my realization of how I choose to react to things as I get older. Like everything in life, stress, struggle, it's all 90% of the result is based on our reactions. And if I can find peace within myself through yoga or mindfulness or taking a walk or doing the things that I enjoy, I think that's kind of how you become successful. That's my measure of success.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm happy and like, this is one of the things that I'm passionate about, is giving back where I can. And if I can make any small contribution, that's amazing in any way, form, or shape that I can. So that's why I'm here.
There's nothing more than I love than your chicken. So if I can be passionate about a food, I'm going to be passionate about that Cluck and Cleaver chicken. That is absolutely delicious.
Oh, thank you.
Nicole, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye. Bill, we're going to hand it back to you right now.
Yeah, Cluck and Cleaver, there's no doubt about it. Yum, yum, yum. So you know what? That brings us to an end, and I really hope that everybody out there have enjoyed today's event, and that the speaker's stories have helped inspire and motivate you. And we all struggle through tough times, each and every one of us, but it's nice. In fact, it's uplifting to hear others talk about how they persevered, and in some cases even thrived. So Fuzzy, I'm curious, what part resonated with you the most today?
I think the biggest thing that I got out of today, Bill, was that no matter how hard things are for you, there's lots of support out there. Whether it is here with the Prostate Cancer Center here in the city, or if it's family and friends, there are lots of outlets for support out there, and it's important to reach out to those outlets and find out how they can help you. If it's been a while since you've had a physical, then definitely get out there, get that physical. But whether it's family or friends, definitely reach out. There's no need to struggle alone. And part of that is also having knowledge about how you're struggling. You may not know you're struggling, but if you feel like you are, there's a good chance that you are, and you should reach out and get that help.
Well put. And as the horribly overused line that we're all in it together. But when we all join together, the Calgary Prostate Cancer Center is a perfect example as to what we can accomplish. Because 20 years ago, the center didn't exist. And in 20 years since we opened, the tens of thousands of men and their families that have benefited from the Prostate Cancer Center, I mean, it's just really phenomenal. And it's all thanks to donors. Again, we couldn't have done it without the community, and they stepped up big time. So, that's why campaigns like the Keep It in Calgary are so vital.
And this is the official kickoff to the Keep It in Calgary campaign. You can learn more. Check out keepitincalgary.ca. Again, that's keepitincalgary.ca. All the money raised stays right here in the city, helping Calgarians. Your donations helping men and their families right here in the city. Keep It in Calgary kicking off today and continues throughout the month of November. And there are many ways for businesses to become involved and support the great work that the PCC is doing here in the city. If you're a local business and you want to become involved, you can sign up on the website. The website again, keepitincalgary.ca. It's right there on the bottom of the screen.
Perfect. Well, you know what, my friend, I so enjoyed sharing this with you today, and I just am so inspired by our guests. And I'll tell you, my heart is really full. So in a great way, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to shed maybe the odd tear of joy, because there are some amazing, amazing people out there, and we're truly blessed to live in such a fantastic community. So thank you to everybody for joining us today. And remember, hashtag live local, give local. Thanks for being with us. Bye.
Excellent, guys.